across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh my God, it's Thursday already. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be steering you through three thrilling hours of powerhouse broadcasting. Fast-paced, action-packed and full of the news and views. All the news and views we can squeeze in right up until 10 o'clock. Get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It's Thursday, February the 20th. Here's what's coming up. Squirming Starmer tells Donald Trump that Zelensky is no dictator, as if the American president gives a damn what he thinks. He's off to Washington next week, and once again, I don't think Trump cares whether he goes or not. In a rare moment of agreement with two-tier Keir, even Nigel Farage also says that Trump's explosive verdict on the Ukraine leader, he's terrible, was over the top and frankly just not true. Nevertheless, American negotiators are clearly determined to force through a peace deal that at this stage looks a lot better for Russia and Putin than it does for Zelensky and Ukraine. But while European leaders erupt in righteous indignation, are Trump and the US gang really that wrong to aggressively pursue an end to the murderous war in the East? Or are they on a path towards dangerous appeasement? What do you reckon? 0344 499 1000. In other news, the latest horror from our favourite idiots, those half-wit immigration judges, who now have overruled a Home Office decision that a Sudanese asylum seeker, estimated to be at least 23, with a receding hairline, he's bald for God's sake, crow's feet, and a wrinkled forehead with a broad chest, is not a child. Now, in his application to stay, this clearly adult illegal channel crosser will be treated as a minor, thanks to what these judges have overruled. They've said the Home Office is wrong to say this guy's not a child. It is a child. He's bald. But because of this bizarre, wrong, stupid decision by the judges, this clearly adult illegal channel crosser will be treated as a minor. And that means that he almost certainly will get the thumbs up to remain. Why are these tribunal judges such a bunch of learned fools? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, a Syrian sex fiend who attacked a 19-year-old woman in Dorset looks set to avoid jail because his lawyer says that to imprison him would breach the terms of the European Convention on Human Rights. Really? Stay tuned for the infuriating details. 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, the tear-stained Gaza documentary chronicling the so-called evils of Israel's retaliation after October the 7th that the BBC won't take down, even though it stars a kid who, the producers insist, they didn't know was the son of a senior Hamas official. BBC, is it unbiased when it comes to the Middle East? Is it prejudiced against Israel? I think it is. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Let's face it, it's got form. Plus, Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds caught on tape telling the Commons he was a solicitor in Manchester. No, he wasn't. He never qualified. So, as well as lying to polish up his CV, Reynolds lied to Parliament. Should this guy apologise? Should he be sacked? 0344 499 1000. Of course, he's not alone when it comes to lying about your careers. The cabinet is full of people polishing up their CVs. We know all about Rachel from Accounts. and also many of the other ones as well. Don't forget Louise Haigh, the Transport Secretary, who sort of pretended she wasn't a convicted fraudster, which she was. She had to go, but the others are still there. Also tonight, why more and more female prison officers are forging romantic relationships with inmates. And after 2 massive sinkholes suddenly appeared in a wealthy Surrey town, forcing the evacuation of 30 homes, the truth about these mysterious holes in the ground. And finally, Meghan Markle's car crash relaunch as she ditches American Riviera Orchard and unveils the latest name for her problem-plagued lifestyle online store. As Ever. It's called As Ever, which is already in a world of trouble. I'm tempted to say whatever. But Kinsey Schofield will bring us all the details on that later on. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Thursday night together. And for the next hour, I will be spending the time with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Well, another night, another tale of moronic judges.
It's unbelievable.
Every night, isn't it, really, now?
Yeah, I mean, it has become like almost a national sport. And we know, I mean, I said, why are they such a bunch of learned fools? Well, they are a bunch of learned fools, but more pertinently, they're a bunch of left-wing learned fools. Yeah. This is what's going on here. The British establishment now is left-wing. You know, I love it when The Guardian keeps going on about, oh, the terrible establishment. Hey, guys, you are the establishment. It's people like you and me, Isabel, who are now the outriders. It seriously is. The whole dial has changed. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we better talk about the latest machinations on the Trump, Starmer and Ukraine front. Starmer has told Trump, or has told Trump, that as far as Britain is concerned, Zelensky is no dictator. And funnily enough, Reform leader Nigel Farage, under some pressure to get involved in this debate because, of course, he's pretty close to Donald. In fairness to Nigel, he's come out too and said, no, Zelensky is not a dictator. Now, Trump also said he's terrible and he could have solved this and should have done a deal and so on and so forth. So far, Trump is kind of positioning Ukraine and Zelensky as the bad guys in this, which I think is a bit over the top. But as the European leaders all rise up in righteous indignation, I mean, these are very early days. You know what Trump's like? He kicks off saying something outrageous and then later on makes a compromise. As they say, I know it's a cliche about him, but they always say, take Trump seriously, but don't take him literally. Now, what he's saying now, I would suggest, are the opening gambits in a process that may lead to a reasonable peace agreed on both sides. I don't think Trump will, in the end, sign any deal without Ukraine being involved, because it would be an invalid deal. You can't sign a peace for a country that doesn't want peace. The war would continue, wouldn't it? So I just think that a lot of this, fury being directed towards Trump and America is a bit premature. We've had 1 day of talks, 2 days of talks in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, opening shots being fired from both sides. The Russians also staking out their stall very, very strongly, very toughly. You know, this is how these things start. So I get it. I can understand why a lot of people are slightly annoyed about Donald Trump at the moment. But do you agree with me that these are just the opening shots? Let's see what develops over the next few days, over the next weeks, maybe even months. And is Donald Trump and his government, are they that wrong to want to pursue an end to that horrible conflict in the East?
Well, of course they're not wrong to do that. And of course, these are just the very earliest interventions by Donald Trump, who is basically striking a pose. And as you said, Nigel Farage came under significant pressure to comment on it all. And some will have criticised. I've seen the level of criticism on Twitter from the usual suspects saying, why the deafening silence from Reform, after Trump's intervention yesterday. Well, the reason for the pause in the reaction from Reform is A, that Mr. Farage was, as that all came out, on a plane to Washington, and B, that only fools would rush to comment on something that is just the beginnings of a position from Trump. This is the thing about Trump, that if you get yourself all in a frothy lather about something he says in the morning, by the afternoon he may have said something rather different.
Yes,
and
you're right, yeah.
You look a bit of a fool, don't you? So sometimes it's better just to stand back for a bit and just see how things settle and make a considered response to a Trump intervention. I think that's what Nigel Farage tried to do. And I think he's succeeded very well in making it clear that he doesn't agree with Trump's and every bit of Trump's analysis. But at the same time, I think we're all in the business of surely wanting this war to end. And the majority of wars, statistics and history shows, are resolved by some form of negotiation. You generally can't just keep going until there's nothing left of one side.
Exactly right. And if they don't do it now, the talks that are going on in Saudi Arabia would be held in about 2 years' time, 3 years' time, maybe a decade's time. In the end, come what may, there will be peace talks. So I think Trump's attitude, and I kind of approve of it, is that let's cut this process short. Let's do it now. Because all that's going to happen between now and, say, 5 years' time is millions of young men will die in horrific circumstances in that horrible war. So all this condemnation of Trump, I think, is over the top. But what he said so far does seem to lean towards favouring Putin and Russia over Ukraine. But as I say, I think his position will change according to circumstances. But the alternative to a peace deal, I mean, America, quite clearly, we in Europe have got to get real about it. The alternative to a peace deal is the war continuing, and America, Trump will just pull out. He won't give any more money to Ukraine, no more weapons. So we have to think about that. America has given $350 billion to Ukraine since this war started. They have given by far the lion's share. So if America pulls out, and we go, oh, well, you're wrong to seek peace. Well, we will end up footing that bill. And if the various EU countries, and indeed Britain, think they've got a cost of living crisis right now, you wait and see what happens then. It won't bear thinking about, right?
Indeed, and I think Trump was also, in his own sort of very over-the-top way, trying to make the point that things aren't quite as black and white here as many would like to believe, in terms of Trump equals evil, which he is, by the way, and Zelensky equals angel. Trump certainly,
you meant Putin, yeah.
Putin equals evil, Zelensky equals
You sounded
angel.
like one of my left-wing friends there.
Gosh, no.
Trump is evil.
Putin definitely is evil.
Yeah, no.
Zelensky is definitely not an angel. I don't think Zelensky's evil, and he and his country are the wronged parties in this. No doubt Russia started this conflict totally unnecessarily, unprovoked. I remember very, very well the build up to the Russian invasion. So I don't think you can spin this as somehow being Zelensky's fault. But nonetheless, Zelensky has very successfully managed to portray himself as a absolutely whiter than white hero in all things. And actually, when you dig a little bit deeper about, the regime, the administration he's presided over, it's not all quite as rosy and clean as one might like to imagine. Yeah. So I'm not in any way apologizing or being an apologist for Putin in saying that. And I know it's very easy to characterize Trump in that way, and he can be guilty of it. But I think he does have a point in saying, look, this isn't quite a case of evil versus good.
Yeah, and I mean, Ukraine and Zelensky are the injured parties here. They didn't start this. That's a ludicrous thing for Trump to say. But because they look like the underdog being bullied, we've tended to sort of deify or beatify Zelensky and Ukraine, and that's a mistake too. They're not whiter than white, but. What about Britain's role in all this? Starmer desperately trying to seem Churchillian, as if he's bestriding Europe and America, the bridge across the Atlantic, if you like, off to Washington next week to see the president. Trump's attitude to that visit, by the way, is come or don't come, don't really care. I don't think Trump gives a flying damn what Keir Starmer thinks. As I said to you, or as we agreed last night, as far as Donald Trump and JD Vance are concerned, Keir Starmer is just another weak, woke European leader who's become dependent on American friendship, American support in all things international, and they've had enough of that. So I don't think that no matter how much Starmer wants to portray himself as a key player in all of this, he just isn't, is he?
All he's doing is looking back at how well this has worked for other British politicians. He knows it worked really well for Boris Johnson. It worked really well for someone much more solid on all these matters, Ben Wallace as Defence Secretary. And so Starmer's thinking, well, I'm a leader that's frankly in pretty dire straits. I think get me a little bit of that. It's not going to work. The other thing is we constantly see this guy globe-trotting, trying to sort of glad hand on the international stage. I mean, the average American wouldn't be able to name the British Prime Minister. They might be able to name Nigel Farage and a handful of other British figures, certainly members of the royal family. But I would hazard a guess it would be a tiny percentage of the American voters that could name Keir Starmer as the UK's Prime Minister. And yeah, sure, Donald Trump will give him the time of day. He'll go through the motions. It'll, on the face of it, be cordial. But this is not going to be Keir Starmer's big Churchillian moment. I don't think we're going to ever get one of those.
Yeah, particularly as, again, we discussed this last night, Donald Trump telling all NATO nations to dedicate 5% of their GDP, their gross national products, to defence spending. That is actually the term of membership of NATO. No countries actually adhere to that, including America, which only pays 3.38. That's a pretty high amount by comparison, but it's not even 5%. But the point is, Donald Trump's saying to Keir Starmer, along with the other European leaders, you've got to up your contributions here. And so Britain pays 2.3% of its GDP to defence, which by European standards is not that bad. It's still way too low. But what has been Keir Starmer's response to Donald Trump saying 5%? We're going to set up a roadmap to see if we can get from 2.3% to 2.5%. What do you mean roadmap? Either you raise the contribution or you don't. You don't need a roadmap. And 2.5%, I'm not that great at maths, but I do believe that's precisely half what Donald Trump is demanding. So on what basis does Keir Starmer believe that will endear him to the American president?
I mean, 5% is pretty punchy. I mean, that is, traditionally it has been 2% that is the qualification or the threshold set for NATO membership. And only a handful of countries have achieved even that. And it's some quite unexpected ones. I mean, the Greeks put a huge amount into defence, partly because they've got all these islands. You might think that we might have some of the same concerns, but apparently
that's true, yeah.
Not so much. I mean, part of the point here is that unless the economy grows, whatever we're putting in is going to be a diminishing amount. If the economy is just bumping along the bottom or goes into recession, then 2.5, 2.6, 2 point whatever it may be is not going to be a greater amount than it was before. We've got to grow the economy in order to have the money for defense spending. We could certainly free up, many, many billions for defense spending if we just cut some of the waste on daft foreign aid that we're still doing, under various...
Solve the migrant crisis. That would save billions every year, wouldn't it?
Right. I mean, you and I could sit here and spend all evening coming up with a nice long list of stuff. And I agree with you about the roadmap. Come on. I wish politicians would stop talking like this.
Either you raise the amount that you're contributing or you don't. You don't need a roadmap or a roadmap. What's he talking about? Before we go to break, I should have played this earlier, but just as a reminder, here is Trump denouncing Volodymyr Zelensky.
Modestly successful comedian. President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won. He refuses to have elections, is low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, oh, no, his polls are good. Give me a break. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war.
Did you see that last night, Isabel? Because I got home after the show and I watched it on the TV. And Donald Trump stood at that podium at some kind of conference in Miami. And it was like stream of consciousness or unconsciousness, maybe. He just stood there for like an hour, never once faltering, just talking. And it was an extraordinary sight. He is a remarkable man. I mean, you might not like him. I think you and I probably do quite like him, but there's something unique about him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there aren't really any other politicians in the world that I'm aware of that talk quite like that. The very sort of limited range of vocabulary, as it were, but it's very powerful. It's all the more powerful for being so simplistic. And he gets stuff wrong if you take it really literally, but people can understand it. He doesn't talk in those stupid riddles that our own politicians think make them sound so clever and continually use to try to get out of, saying, coming down with a simple yes or a simple no.
There are no road maps in his vocabulary, are there?
No road maps, no frameworks, none of that. And thank God he's
consultations, none of that.
Not using the word delivery, not talking about growth again and again. He doesn't do the soundbite things. It's sort of almost comical, except these are tremendously serious matters.
Yeah, and also the other thing I would say, we must go to break now, but Joe Biden was notorious. He'd never talked to the press. He didn't have press conferences. He was like the kind of hidden president. Donald Trump, for all his faults, I mean, he communicates not only with America, but with the world almost on a daily basis. He goes on to telly pretty much every damn day. So transparency is his game, and for that he should be applauded. Talking to the people is important, and if leaders don't do it, they tend to fail. Listen, we're going to break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about that Syrian guy, the Sudanese guy, who's 23 years old. He's bald, but our tribunal judges say that he's a child. How about that? That next, stay tuned.
Russian army can do nothing with Ukrainians, despite they're bigger than we, despite that they have more weapons, and so on and so on. They can do nothing. They have lost minimum 300,000 people being killed in Ukraine. Can you imagine? 300,000 killed, not less than 600,000 injured. That's absolutely dramatic losses for Russia, but they don't want to stop because they don't care about their losses. And yes, now they will put all their energy inside Ukraine, try to destroy Ukraine from inside.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott. Before we get on to our next item, let me know what you think. Is Donald Trump really that wrong to aggressively pursue a kind of peace deal for Ukraine and Russia? And are people overreacting? Because these are early days. Where do you stand on this? I mean, do you want this war to go on forever? It seems like the European leaders kind of do. So let me know where you stand. 03444991000. Now, on to the main attraction, Isabel. The story that I think, well, it certainly annoys me. I know it will infuriate you. And I suspect my audience won't be too thrilled about this. As you said earlier, another day, another mad decision by one of these tribunal judges. These immigration tribunals. This one beggars belief. A Sudanese asylum seeker who is actually estimated to be 23, at least. He's got a receding hairline, so he's bald. He has thick facial hair and has crow's feet, wrinkles on his eye, a wrinkled forehead and a very broad chest. And at the Home Office...
You and me at this point.
Yeah. The Home Office swiftly decided, after this guy illegally crossed the channel and claimed asylum as a child, that he wasn't a child. So, of course, in the manner of these things, his lawyers that we're paying for appealed. And the tribunal judge ruled... No, the Home Office is wrong here. This guy, this bald guy with a thick facial hair and lots of wrinkles all over his face is indeed a child, and now his asylum application will proceed as such. So he will be treated as a minor. Now, a minor on his own, he's almost certain to be allowed to stay. What the hell is going on here? Because we always demonise, or often demonise, the Home Office. Oh, they're useless, not fit for purpose. You know, they favour the asylum seekers all the time. But to be fair, all of these cases that we talk about, they always involve the Home Office saying, no, deport this person. That person is not a child. Then the Home Office decision gets appealed against. It goes to a tribunal judge who always finds against the Home Office. So the Home Office is not to blame here. It's another mad moron of a tribunal immigration judge. What the hell is going on?
I just want to see a picture of this so-called child, but of course we don't get to see a picture because their identity is protected, not least as they're apparently a so-called minor. I mean, it's ironic, Kev, because I think we were talking about these cases actually only last night, and I was mentioning towards the end of one of our discussions that this is one of the great scams that is so expensive, in particular for local authorities, that end up, you know, where asylum seekers are distributed to different parts of the country. Local authorities have to make particular arrangements for so-called unaccompanied minors. And on many occasions, the authorities are pretty convinced that these so-called under 16s or under 18s are actually nothing of the sort.
Yeah.
And yet they've got to jump through all sorts of hoops to give them special accommodation. And, I'm not kidding you, Ofsted registered special educational settings with staff to pupil ratios, even though these young men are quite patently in their 20s. And on the advice of lawyers who I don't know how they can look themselves in the eye, on the advice of these lawyers, these young men refuse to cooperate with giving the kind of DNA or evidence, I think, that's quite often weirdly taken from the palm of their hand. They refuse to cooperate with that, thus costing the taxpayer ever greater sums of money as more hoops have to be jumped through to prove that what age they are or they aren't. And as you say, inevitably, it ends up with some idiotic judge saying, well, I'm sure this person really can't possibly be making it up, and let them.
Yeah, he's bald. He's bald. He's bald. He's got grey hair. He's got wrinkles all over his face, but he's only 16 because he had a very hard life. Yeah, right. And by the way, Isabel, the local authority, the local council lumbered with looking after this alleged child, has been stuck with his legal bills amounting now, so far, to more than £30,000. So in the end, that's the poor people who live in this area are paying that through their council tax. So isn't that special? Same kind of story here. A Syrian sex fiend who was found guilty at Bournemouth Crown Court last November was all set for sentencing until his defence barrister stepped in and said, now what this person did, by the way, is that we've got a name for this guy because he's in the legal system. His name is Hassan Abu Haile. He's 39 years old, and he was found guilty of sexually assaulting a 19-year-old girl in Dorset. Just as he was about to be sentenced, one would assume, hopefully, a custodial sentence, in stepped his barrister who said, no, wait a minute. According to the European Convention on Human Rights, you cannot put my client in prison. Article 3, I do believe. Because when he was in Syria, he says he was jailed in an Assad prison and tortured, and therefore contracted post-traumatic stress syndrome, which he's still got. And because of that, to put him back into prison would exacerbate his PTSD. That's against the terms of the European Convention on Human Rights, and as such, they still haven't reached a decision on whether or not he's going to go to jail. So far, again, because of the ECHR, this rapist, this sexual assaulter of a poor 19-year-old girl hasn't gone to jail and still isn't going to jail because of the ECHR. This is getting out of control, isn't it?
Oh, totally out of control. So let's put it more simply. I mean, what's been decided here is effectively that this Syrian criminal is allergic to jail. That's what they've decided. He can't go to jail because he's allergic to it because he had a distressing time in jail in Syria. Well, I'm sorry if he did have an awful time. Those Assad prisons were pretty horrendous. Doubt they've got much better under any new regime in Syria. Jail generally in most countries isn't that nice a place to be. So you would have thought that when you came to Britain and you were given refuge, you'd be on your best behaviour. Having experienced how bad jail is, you might think you want to avoid it in the UK. But no, this guy committed a crime and now he's trying to get out of jail on the grounds that it might...
Well, wait a minute. No, you got that wrong. He hasn't been to jail. He's trying to get out of going to jail.
Get out of going to it, indeed. That's what I meant. Yeah, on the grounds that it might be a little bit bad for his health. Well, yeah, cry me a river. I don't even know why we're even contemplating giving this the time of day. We have got to come out of the ECHR, and it is so disappointing that in 14 years of Conservative government, where successive Tory leadership candidates kept on saying things like they were prepared to consider coming out of the ECHR. None of them ever had the balls to do it. Yeah. And look where we are now.
Yeah, and Kemi Badenoch doesn't want to leave it either. So,
well, good luck to her. I very much doubt she's going to be in position she's in at the next election. I can't tell you how many Tories are talking about her being gone by potentially even the end of the summer, even if she lasts that long. I mean, this is really already quite serious for Kemi Badenoch.
Well, I had Andrea Jenkins on last night, of course, former Tory grandee, really, Dame Andrea Jenkins, who's switched to Reform. And she echoed exactly what you just said. She said, you know, I know a lot of Tory MPs. She said, you won't believe what they're saying about her. I said, I think I probably will. They have had enough with her. She's just, I mean, I hesitate to be nasty about her, but, you know, let's call it what it is. She's just no good. She's no good at this job. She does
it. And you know, it just is never going to work. Just simply repeating 8 times in every speech that the Tory party is under new management. It's all she ever says. She's weakened Prime Minister's questions. She's allowed 5 Reform MPs to absolutely steal a march on her. You know, just a small group of them that managed to absolutely control and steal the agenda in a way that, with her, all her many troops, much decimated as they are, she ought to be able to do. So here's what they're talking about. They're talking about either getting rid of her in the summer, or the absolute end stop will be around the time of the Welsh elections next May, not this May coming. I'm really not sure she'll last anywhere near that long.
Yeah.
You know, I just think the Tory party, once they realise that a leader is no good, they don't usually hang around very long.
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, they've got to get a move on because, you know, they need someone who's shouting from the rooftops. They need someone who will dare to disturb the universe, who will stand up and say, we'll leave the ECHR. This is the number of migrants I'm going to let in every year. None. Something like that. Yeah. But with her, she's one of those politicians who loves to tell us simpletons in public life, oh, well, it's a little bit more complicated than you understand. That's what she says about the ECHR.
It's not serious enough.
It's far, yeah, we're not serious people, and we don't understand that leaving the ECHR is far more complex than we believe it is. Well, when politicians say something, it's far more complex. What it means is it's not complex. It's really easy, but they don't really get it. So yeah, I agree with her, with you. She's not going to last long, and if she does last, Tories are in even bigger trouble than they already are. When we come back, let's talk about. I think we're going to talk about Jonathan Reynolds. He is the business secretary, the lying business secretary. But first up, when we come back, we're going to talk about this Gaza documentary that the BBC have made. They've already apologised for it, but the plot sickens and also thickens. It's even worse than we thought. We'll talk about that after these messages.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. The BBC, notorious for its prejudice when it comes to Israel. It doesn't like Israel, it loves Palestine. It's simple as that. They think, we're the BBC, we're unbiased. The BBC is one of the most biased organisations, but they are the most biased reporters in the world when it comes to the Middle East. There's no doubt about it. They cannot deny it. They will deny it, but actually in the real world they can't, because it's true. They've made the BBC has screened a documentary called Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone. It basically chronicles, the horrors inflicted on Palestine, on Gaza, by Israel in retaliation for October the 7th. What did they expect? Israel to do nothing? Anyway, it's narrated by an innocent 13-year-old Palestinian kid called Abdullah Al-Yazouri. What the documentary didn't tell us, and the BBC said that the producers didn't tell them either, was that young Abdullah is the son of a senior Hamas official. In fact, effectively, he's Hamas's agriculture minister in Palestine or in Gaza. Now, that's bad enough. So it's still up there. You can still watch it on iPlayer, even though the BBC has apologised for this. And it now has got this kind of warning that this kid is the son of a Hamas terrorist, right? So you can tell the kind of story he's going to tell. Well, it turns out, Isabel, that there's another kid in it. There's a secondary kid. His name is Zakaria S. Sersek, and he has close links with Hamas as well. Now, he had scenes in this documentary that were filmed by a guy called Salah Al-Jafawi, otherwise known as the notorious Mr. Fafo, F-A-F-O. He's the guy that stages these scenes of horror to look as if Israel has committed some kind of abomination. He stages up actors, puts dust all over them, fake blood, films it, shoves it out. He was found out about in the middle of the war about a year ago. He was found out. So this kid was filmed by me. He works closely with this kid. So this kid is a fraud as well. Now, my point is the BBC should say, well, they have apologised, but that you can still watch it. Now, they should take this down. This is a fraudulent documentary. This is a piece of propaganda. Now, the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, is to demand answers from the state broadcaster over this shockingly biased programme. But you know what that will mean? Nothing. What happens with this kind of thing with the BBC, Isabel, is we complain and complain and complain. And they sort of, oh yeah, we're sorry. And then they just move on. Lisa Nandy will not in any way reprimand or punish the BBC because she's Labour and Labour just love the state broadcaster. They are, again, this state broadcaster of ours is, when it comes to the Middle East, is a disgrace and spiralling out of control.
Well, to anyone who works in the media, and that includes making documentaries, it is astonishing that this could have happened by accident, because working with children carries all sorts of additional, quite rightly, editorial restrictions. You can't, as a journalist, you can't just go and interview kids on the street, certainly not in the UK, and no journalists that work under the various editors' codes do that. You're just not allowed to do that. It's unethical. And so the idea that this documentary would have been made using this child without anyone having any contact with the parents or conducting any kind of due diligence rather stretches belief. Now, I know it was made by an outside supplier of documentaries, which is very normal. But again, the BBC has a duty to make sure that this has been done properly. And it just is, it's extraordinary, isn't it? that
It's still there. The extraordinary thing is, it's all they did. Well, they said, "Oh, sorry, we didn't know about this information. The independent producers didn't tell us." They've received a letter of complaint from former BBC controller Danny Cohen, also J.K. Rowling's agent, a guy called Neil Blair, and ex-Britain's Got Talent commissioner Claudia Rosencrantz. So they've received this furious letter from a lot of Jewish luminaries, which I'll tell you what they'll do. They'll just screw it up and throw it in the bin and move on to the next terribly biased piece of reporting against Israel in the Middle East. That's what they do. Nothing ever stops them.
Well, I've got a little suggestion for them, actually, because the BBC have got a hugely well-resourced unit, which is a fact-checking unit. And
Verify.
That's it, BBC Verify. And they apply, I think it's something like 70 journalists, crack.
Yeah, they keep getting everything wrong, by the way.
Forensic research into the truth behind, controversy. So how about they turn their learned minds to what really happened here? Check the facts. Is it possible that nobody knew what was going on here? And then they can produce a report. We can see just how biased they really are by their findings into this little investigation.
Pompous Verify. Oh, this is BBC. We can fact check. If you ask Verify today, could you confirm it's Thursday? They come back and say, no, we've looked into this and it's Friday. They get everything wrong. So they're a pathetic organisation anyway. Typically pompous of the BBC. We will check the facts. Well, who checks the fact checkers? Because that lot need fact checking big time. The BBC is uncontrollable in this respect, and they do not see it. They do not see that they are prejudiced against Israel, and they very, very much are. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. Talking of which, when we come back after this break, we're going to talk about that liar, the business secretary, Jonathan Reynolds. That next. Stay tuned.
Russian army can do nothing with Ukrainians, despite they're bigger than we, despite that they have more weapons, and so on, so on. They can do nothing. They have lost minimum 300,000 people being killed in Ukraine. Can you imagine? 300,000 killed, not less than 600,000 injured. That's absolutely dramatic losses for Russia, but they don't want to stop because they don't care about their losses. And yes, now they will put all their energy inside Ukraine, try to destroy Ukraine from inside.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott and our final story of today and indeed this week. She always comes in on a Wednesday and a Thursday, and I'm very grateful for that because it's two very valuable hours that we spend picking through some of the important stories of the day. And this one obviously dates back to yesterday. It was 2 days ago that Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, was exposed for lying about being a solicitor. He said that he was a solicitor in Manchester. It's on his CV, it's on his LinkedIn profile, at least it was. It turns out he wasn't a solicitor. He trained to be a solicitor but never qualified. Well, it transpires today that the sort of watchdog of the profession, the Solicitors Regulation Authority they're called, some time ago told him to stop saying he was a solicitor, but he didn't do much about that. He has now removed all reference to him being a solicitor. Now the point is, you know, as we discussed last night, Isabel, a lot of people, you know, polish up their CV, you know, maybe over-exaggerate what a wonderful qualified person they are and all their brilliant achievements. You know, people do that to get jobs. And, you know, and in most areas of life, it doesn't really matter. A major chief executive of a huge city accountancy firm today quit because he said he was a chartered accountant and he wasn't. If I was the shareholder of that company, I'd say, well, what kind of a job is he doing? And if the answer was a very good job, I'd say, I don't really care that he lied about whether or not he's a chartered accountant. But that's private life. Politics is a different matter. These politicians, they get elected by constituents, by the people, on the back of who they tell their constituents they are. I'm a solicitor. I'm a man of great achievement. You know, I was an economist for 50 years at the Bank of England, so on and so forth. You know, Rachel from accounts lied through her teeth about her CV. You know, we know about Louise Haigh, who essentially lied by not telling the public that she was a convicted fraudster. So she actually had to go as Transport Secretary. This cabinet is full of liars, including Jonathan Reynolds. Now, this is important. This is him speaking in the House of Commons, in the Commons. Take this away. Go on.
Before the last election, I worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre, and I would travel in to Manchester every day for what is now my constituency.
Well, he's lost a lot of hair and grown a beard, but there he is lying to the House, lying to the Commons, lying to Parliament about being a solicitor. That's quite a serious thing. You can't lie to the House. Now, I think that this shouldn't just be left alone. I mean, you must at the very least make a public apology about this. And if I was Keir Starmer, I'd think about firing him. I mean, the amount of liars in the cabinet, this is serious stuff. And there he is lying to Parliament. What do you think?
I agree. This guy is a fraud. I think it's kind of sad that he felt the need to do that. You know, the point he was making would have been just as powerful if he just said, before I came to this place, I was training as a solicitor. You know, what's wrong with that? Why are these people so lacking in self-confidence, or why do they think their credentials are so weak that they have to spin them up in that way? I mean, maybe their CVs are pretty crap and they've got the need to spin them up to be a bit more impressive. But there's nothing less impressive, is there, than being caught out in this way and being exposed as he has been. I think it's tremendously embarrassing, and you know, it's just mendacious in the end. I think that's quite an extraordinary thing to do. And, you know, it's a problem across many professions, a real concern about it in relation now and again. Serious cases come up in the NHS of doctors who claim to have, who actually turn out to be fake doctors. It's not at all unheard of.
Yeah, I remember it was a long time ago, about 20 years ago, when I was working on Fleet Street. And a story came up with this surgeon. It turns out he wasn't even qualified as a doctor. He had no qualifications at all. And he was a surgeon and had been practicing as a surgeon for some time and was regarded to be a damn good surgeon. But I think in that instance, that obviously is heinous, in the medical profession. But as I say, in all sorts of areas, if I found out that the boss of a car dealer, said he had a degree in something, in selling cars and didn't, but was doing a damn good job, who really cares? Let him carry on. But in Parliament, lying to the mother of all parliaments, recorded in Hansard for time immemorial. This is serious stuff. They've got actually, in terms of Reynolds and that sort of incontrovertible moment where he lied to the House, he actually does have to do something about that. It's different to what Rachel from Accounts has done. That's in Parliament. He's going to have to do something about that.
It's known as correcting the record and probably apologising. I mean, there would absolutely be a case to say this guy should be fired for this. But, whether or not, whatever the punishment ends up being, and clearly Starmer won't want to fire him, it tells you something about the very low calibre of our politicians.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. What about let's reflect for the minute we've got left. All of this points to the incredibly low calibre of the front bench of Keir Starmer's cabinet, doesn't it?
And it further undermines trust. Politicians, I'm afraid journalists don't do too well on that either, but politicians are so low in trust. And this kind of thing just adds to the sense that they're all liars, they're all cheats, they're all, in it for themselves, etc. I think it's a really damaging story, this one.
It really is. Isabel, thank you for a fabulous couple of days. As always, you'll be back next week. Have a lovely weekend. That's Isabel Oakeshott, our international editor, here every Wednesday and Thursday, and a damn good job she does too. Now, when we come back, we're going to go off-piste. Unusual story. Have you seen all these female prison officers keep forming relationships with inmates? We're going to take a deep dive in that and find out why. That next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. By the way, I've got got a nice note from Gemma Atkinson with a photo of her. She said, chilling on the sofa with our Kev. Well, thanks, Gem. Looking good, by the way. Sent a photo in. This is a message that makes me laugh, right? Kevin O'Sullivan. Why do you never accept calls from talk listeners with opposing views and opinions to yours? Because I never get any, because my listeners are clever and they all agree with me. No, but seriously, she goes, with opposing views and opinions to yours, are you afraid to enter into an honest and open debate and with learned and erudite callers? Perhaps they are being cancelled. They're not, by the way. Which, all things considered, would be a strange paradox, given your professed ideology. Tell you what, mate or lady, whatever you are, why don't you put your name on it? And why don't you give me a ring? 03444991000. Or are you going to hide behind this anonymous little note? I'll take any calls. Most of my callers tend to agree with me because we're all intelligent. You clearly have problems in that direction. But whoever you are, scared to give your name, if you want to ring me, 03444991000. And why don't you challenge me with a few opposing views and opinions different to mine? See how you get on. 03444991000. Also, a bit later in the show, I'll bring you some funny responses. You know that guy, Mohammed Hoblos, the hate preacher, who, after about a week of going around the houses and through the hoops with the Home Office, we kind of established finally that he had been banned from this country. He's supposed to do a tour. 5-city tour. We've been trying to get hold of him to say, why don't you come on the show and give your side of the story. I've had this long and pompous note from someone. I don't go in for theatrical platforms. If you want an intellectual, find another platform's intellectual debate, I might be prepared to do that. Anyway, it's signed by. Here we are. It's signed by. Someone called Shakia Abu Taimiyah. Well, what's your name? Shakia. I didn't ask you to come on. Not interested in you coming on. So thank you very much for your note. But if your mate Mohammed Hoblos wants to come on, he's very welcome. Okay? 03444991000. If you're out there, Mohammed, I hope you're watching from abroad. But if you're out there, you got my number. And we've got yours. Right, let's move on. By the way, in about 25 minutes or so, I'm going to bring you some good news. Do you remember the case, the mad case of Oliver Smith, the 33-year-old guy with the mental age of a 10-year-old that the police arrested for making a silly death threat on Instagram to Keir Starmer, and then told him that he would have to attend a 16-week course, correctional course, to correct his thinking about social media and politics. And we kept saying, but he's got the mental age of a 10-year-old. You know, severely autistic. Well, no, you got to go to the course. Well, finally, we've got some good news on that front. So we'll bring you that in about 25 minutes when we speak to Oliver's lovely mum, Angie. So that in just a little while. Now, first, though, we're going to go into a story that is not on today's schedule, the general news schedule, but I think it's worth talking about. Now, you may have noticed that more and more female prison officers are being caught having relationships with inmates. We believe that something like 29 female prison officers have been caught and convicted of forging inappropriate relationships, romantic relationships with prisoners in 3 years. Only this week, a 29-year-old female warden called Toni Cole, Toni, T-O-N-I, was jailed for a year after admitting sending more than 4,000 messages, making video calls and kissing an inmate. And that was a violent armed robber. They've gone to... So she was jailed for a year. And at the same jail, Wellingborough jail. A year ago, someone called Rachel Stanton, a trainee officer, fell for an armed robber, and she was caught having sex, or afterwards was found to have had sex in a storeroom with this guy, and she got a suspended sentence. Now, why is this happening? It never used to happen. Bearing in mind that it's not that long ago that female wardens weren't allowed to work in male prisons, but they are now. It's a kind of diversity, inclusivity kind of a thing, and also, they struggle for staff at prisons. So women are now allowed to work in female prisons, and this is becoming a bit of a scourge. 29 have been found guilty of inappropriate romantic relationships with prisoners over the past year. My next guest, I think, can supply us with a potential reason for this, with some statistics. It's our friend, ex-Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks, Kevin. It's a massive problem. I mean, you mentioned the people convicted there. At one jail in North Wales, 18 female members of staff have either been sacked or resigned for this. So whilst we're talking about people who have been convicted, there's also the statistics around who's left their job or been sacked because of exactly the same thing. This is so widespread, it's just unbelievable.
And you sent me the statistics which kind of indicate why this is happening. Here we go. There are 3,000 more women working in prisons than 5 years ago, up from 13,800 to 16,600. Now, when they changed the rules and said, well, women can be prison officers in male prisons, partly due to DEI, but also due to the fact that there is a staffing problem, it was agreed that the ratio of women to men in terms of employees could only be 1 in 7. So the staff of a prison could only have a seventh of that staff being women. 1 in 7 could be a woman. That has gone by the by, and in some jails, more than half of the staff are women, and 70%, over 70% of male prison governors are women. So something's going wrong here, isn't it?
It is going wrong. And what we've forgotten, it's like many organisations in the government, the purpose of a prison is to punish and rehabilitate offenders. But it's been seen as a sort of, we'll have to offer equal opportunities as well, because the trouble with crime is not an equal opportunities employer, because 95% of criminals are men. The only crime where there's any sort of a correlation between men and women is shoplifting, where 60% are men and 40% are women. Everything else is 90-odd% men and a few women. Now, it's really sad that, women who want to be prison officers couldn't be prison officers because, that 95% of prisoners are men. But the facts are that the state's job is to keep us safe. And the men who are put in prison, we see these are often violent and manipulative men, and they will try anything to get an easy way in prison. And you have to deal with violent men in a violent way. You have to have big, strong men to deal with them. Just like in the Olympic Games, women cannot fight against men because men are bigger and stronger and they're more evil. And what's happening here is that they're bringing in very inexperienced staff. So something like 50% of prison officers have got less than 3 years experience. So you add that to them being female, smaller than these men are manipulative. And what we end up is a weird situation where, when we used to watch Porridge and they used to refer to Mr. Mackay as a screw, the word screw has taken on a whole different meaning here.
Yes, we've seen all the pictures. How does this actually happen? I mean, these, to be a prison officer, you have to be trained, don't you? You have to know the rules, you have to understand it. They are clearly, in their rush to employ women, they're employing the wrong kind of women, because these relationships are incredibly irresponsible. Surely a prison warden, as we used to call them, female, or a proper one, would see the inappropriateness of any romantic relationship with an inmate, right at the first time that guy might make an advance. And by the way, this one that went to jail was passing on information to her boyfriend, her prisoner boyfriend, about prison cell searches. So that he had prior knowledge of when they were going to go through his cell, so he was able to hide all the nefarious stuff. So it's wrong on so many levels.
It is, yes. So that you got the last one, the Tony Cole you mentioned, sent 4,000 text messages and sex messages. These prisoners aren't supposed to have mobile phones. And it doesn't matter. There's a simple solution here. There should be men in men's jail and women in women's jails. And the fact of equal opportunity shouldn't play a part. The main consideration should be keeping the country safe. And this is what's got lost in so many organisations. And the result is the public suffer. These criminals are laughing at us. Not only are they in prison with Sky TV now they've got sort of sex as well, and somebody giving them information, as you said, and probably helping smuggling things in. And in times past, of course, the prison officers would have looked like Mr. Mackay with some army medals on their chest, and they would have been the ideal candidates. But of course, clever people, just like the clever individual who sent you that message saying, do you like some erudite chaps coming on, some experts? Well, we're sick and tired of these experts, aren't we? Because for 60 years now, crime has raised out of control. Now the prisons are just a mess, ill-disciplined. And how can you keep discipline when you haven't got enough officers who are strong enough to fight with men who can go down the gym every day? It is just simply not good enough. It just shows that every part of the justice system is sort of falling apart. And what happens is that the public lose trust and confidence in the police, in the prison service and the judiciary. And that is not where we should be in a free and fair democratic society.
Well, the prison minister, Lord Timpson, who runs those shoe repair places, Timpson's, in fairness to him, he has a policy of hiring ex-prisoners. So he does put his money where his mouth is. So for once we have a minister who might know something about prisons and prisoners. I mean, he's seen this rising problem, this soaring problem. But of course, in the time-honoured fashion of Labour, has ordered a review to look into training, how these people are trained. Well, that's one thing. But what we're talking about here, they're certainly clearly often employing the wrong kind of woman, a woman who's going into jail sort of looking for a guy. But a review of training, I mean, that's not really going to solve this problem, is it? I mean, what I think you're saying, Mike, is what would be a good idea is we went back to the tradition of male prison officers in male prisons.
It just makes so much sense. But like everything in this country, common sense is kicked out of the window. And they go on these crazy schemes. And everything's like a thin end of the wedge. So my former prison officer friend said, as you said, 1 in 7, that's 13%. But now it's like it's 40%. So it's 3 times more than they were ever promised in the first place. And it just leaves, and what they do, they talk about training, if you look at selection, you've got prison officers who are selected over Zoom. No one ever speaks to them direct. So you can't see, you can't see into somebody's eyes, I suggest, when you see them over Zoom. And you certainly can't see their physical strength and those sort of characteristics when you're doing it over a computer. So not the selection's poor. When you look at the training, that's about 8 weeks. When I was in the police, it was 20 weeks to be a police officer. And also, I think they cover about 8 hours on corruption. Now, I will gamble you that the amount of time in prison training, which is dedicated to DEI and equal opportunities, is far more than the hours spent on the potential for corruption and things that might go wrong. And this is, again, where the government's public sector work and training has gone utterly wrong. It focuses on all the wrong things.
What did you make of the prison review that was moving on to a different aspect of the prison debate? A couple of days ago it emerged that this guy David Gauke, former Tory minister, he's been reviewing sentencing in prison. And because David Gauke always was, to say the least, a wet Tory, to the point that he was a virtual socialist. But he came up with the conclusion that we're sending way too many people to prison, and the justification for this conclusion was that, that so many prisoners come out and return directly to crime, that rehabilitation isn't working. Fair point, but the one thing he didn't factor into his learned summary was that prison isn't primarily for rehabilitation. I'm not decrying rehabilitation. It's a great idea, and when it works, whoopee-doo, let's break open the champagne. But primarily, prison is to punish criminals, people who break the law. So, the idea, let's not send these rampant crooks to jail because jail is not rehabilitating them. He's missing the damn point, isn't he?
But what you got to imagine, Kevin, is David Gorkin is like, they're part of the left liberal elite. They believe in all the things, don't they? All the cult things like net zero, no doubt. He believes in that, mass immigration. And so for 60 years since Roy Jenkins, we've had this, don't lock people up, we've got to be a nicer society and all this. The liberal hour, I think it was called under Roy Jenkins. And of course, it's been an utter disaster. Crime has gone out of control since then, particularly violent crime and murder and the like. And of course, prison works in the sense that you can do anything in prison, but you can't burgle my house and you can't attack your wife and you can't steal my car. So prison is good for that. If we can teach people to read and write and give them a trade, well, that's all good, and good on Lord Timpson for his work in this field. But the other paradox you have as well, of course, is that you have Gork coming out with his establishment chums and saying this, and on the same day you've got Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, announcing, right, we're going to crack down on knives being sold over the internet, and it's not 2 years, it's 4 years in prison now. So at one point, you've got a bloke saying, don't lock them up. And then you've got the Home Secretary saying, we're cracking down on this. And the sentence is not 2 years, it's 4 years. But that's a swindle because it's not really 4 years. It's half of that with 40%. So it's really about 3 months. So it's all a con.
Yeah, on the last point, again, going off piece slightly, when you mentioned the thing about the knives and, Yvette Cooper, Starmer as well, as a right crackdown on Amazon, no more, knife sales. You mustn't be allowed to sell knives online and indeed shops. I mean, it's so asinine. It's asinine. Well, what is the point of that? Any kid or person who wants to go out and kill someone with a knife, go to your kitchen drawer. There's 50 murder weapons in there, your cutlery drawer. Do you know what I mean? It's just saying, right, we're cracking down on online knife sales. It's purely performative. It's for headlines. Won't make a blind bit of difference, right?
Won't make a difference, and because they're gaslighting the public, what they're doing is they're saying we're doing something, we're cracking down on some Amazon site selling a sword, and it's wrong that the young lad in Wolverhampton was killed with a sword that somebody bought over the internet, but most of the young men who were killed with knives, and it's generally young men, will be killed with a kitchen knife, which you could, like you say, get out of the drawer. But the facts are, the way that you stop knife crime is you stop and search, you take the knives away, and if somebody is found carrying a knife or murders with a knife, you lock them away for a long time, so there's a deterrent. The problem is, especially with the left liberal elite, is that unfortunately a lot of young black men carry knives, and 60% of knife murders in London are committed by young black men. And then stop and search is, of course, racist. They accuse the police of racism. So you have young officers who are in fear of losing their job because if they do the wrong stop and search, they'll be found guilty of racism and booted out of the force. So the net result is the politicians let a load of hot air about. We've got this new offence, we've got this maximum punishment, and yet they don't tackle the real problem. The elephant in the room is there's too many ethnic minorities who are caught with knives or who murder with knives, and no one wants to do anything about it because it's too awful to contemplate. But the tragedy is it's usually young black men who are the victim of that knife crime and die, and the politicians are allowed to get this going on because they're happy with their own agenda.
And coppers, particularly young coppers, are terrified to do stop and search in case they're accused of racism. You're exactly right, Mike, as always. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Mike Neville there, ex-Scotland Yard detective. Now, when we come back after this next break, We're going to talk about sinkholes. The rather well-to-do town in Surrey of Gosport. 2 massive sinkholes suddenly appeared on the high street. 30 properties have to be evacuated. So what are sinkholes? What causes them? Some of them, we got some pictures of some of them around the world. The biggest one is in China, I think. It'd be staggering. Massive thing. Well, we're going to talk to an expert about sinkholes, find out what they are, what causes them, how often they happen, because they do seem to happen quite a lot. So that next, stay tuned.
Well, it's very clear that Vladimir Putin started the war in Ukraine. And what needs to happen is Russia must not allow to win from the conflict that they started in the first place. But these talks were in early days, and what I'm interested to know is what actually comes out of them. My view is Putin is the aggressor in this conflict, and ultimately, if he succeeds in being rewarded for invading Ukraine, he won't stop in Ukraine.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to talk to Angie Smith, the mother of 33-year-old Oliver Smith with a mental age of 10. We've got some good news. It looks like the police have finally seen sense about that young man. We'll tell you all about that in a little while. But first, I'm intrigued by this, and I feel sorry for the people of Gosport. Sinkholes. You read these stories, oh, a terrible sinkhole happened here. Oh, look at this, sinkhole. Now, in Gosport, a very well-to-do area in Surrey, what they call Millionaires Row and all that, on Monday, a sinkhole started to appear on the high street. By Wednesday, it had expanded to pretty massive proportions, about 20 metres long. And then all of a sudden, another one, that's the smaller one on the other side of the street, Perhaps we could show the bigger one in just a little while. That's the smaller one. How to explain it? That's what you do in journalism. You show the small one and then you build up to the bigger one. We've got that the wrong way around, but never matter. There's the big one. There's the big one, and so then that small. Now look at that, pretty massive. 30 properties, homes have had to be evacuated. People kicked out of their houses because of this. So I thought we'd try to find out what the hell sinkholes are, and we're going to show you some pictures of some of the world's biggest sinkholes that will blow your mind. They really will. So a warm welcome to the show to former president of the Geological Society in London, Professor Peter Stiles. Thank you for joining us, Peter.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very well. Well, first of all, what is a sinkhole?
Okay, a sinkhole is a bit of a catch-all term that people use. It's when a subsurface cavity decides to meet the surface. Okay, so you get but that can be a natural cave in limestone, in salt, in gypsum, or it can be the effect of underground mining activities when they come to the surface. Right. So we have a variety of ways. Unfortunately, I think in this place, Godstone it's called. I think it might be a combination of several of those.
Yeah, Godstone. So I got the name wrong. I said Godstone.
But I've worked on.
What do you think this one is, Peter? What do you think?
Well, it's clear. There's clearly a water main there, which has contributed to it. But my worry is whether or not that water main burst and caused the sinkhole, or whether the sinkhole coming from much deeper caused the water main to burst. And that's not all clear to me. I'm working on the pictures that you see. I haven't been there yet. But this area is undermined by tunnels where they extracted a particular kind of stone, which has been used for a lot of London buildings, and because it's very fire resistant. And further up the road, they've been extracting chalk. And I believe that they have mined sand here. So there's a lot of activities have gone underground. And if you have a cavity underground, eventually it will try to get to the surface. And it's very difficult to actually deal with. My worry here, you see, is in 2002, a similar sinkhole happened in Blackheath on the A2 in London, very similar.
Southeast London, yeah.
It looked actually smaller than this, but the actual effect and the actual surroundings, which were actually in trouble, were about 5 or 6 times as big. And I do worry when the council think that this is the limit that they're going to see, that this is just the surface expression. This has a much larger subsurface characterization, I predict, and I've worked on these for 25 years.
So this could get bigger. And do these sinkholes, will these properties be sort of undermined to the point of perhaps of not being able to be inhabited anymore?
Well, you can deal with anything engineering-wise, but it depends how much it costs. You can actually build other sinkholes, because you can build concrete pillars which go down through them to solid ground underneath. The question is, whose responsibility is this? Is it the house owners? Is it the insurance companies? Is it the local council? Is it someone else? I don't really know. You can deal with it, but it becomes a kind of commercial decision as to whether that's where you go. But it's very threatening for these houses. As you can see, it's right up to their front doors.
Yeah.
Now, I might have hoped that site investigation before these were built might have given a bit of a clue that this is not the easiest of places to work. Yeah. But of course, this is a busy road. When this was previously not used by such heavy traffic and heavy lorries. So all of these things contribute. And if you have a cavity, it will try to reach the surface.
And in terms of that, would that be exacerbated by a lot of rain or something like that?
Well, yes, we've had a tremendous amount of rainfall, of heavy rainfall, flooding this last few months. That certainly doesn't help. I'd need to actually look at this and inspect it more closely to give a more definitive opinion. But I do worry about this. See, my particular expertise is trying to detect these before they get to this size.
Right. And how frequent are they, Peter? How often do they happen in this country?
Well, there are a lot, but most of them don't occur beneath busy high streets, right? They might happen out in the countryside. They might happen in another country, of course. Right. But there will be several of these of this size in the UK. We've had look at the size of this one.
Well, tell us about. I believe this one is in China. I mean, look at the hell at that.
I've not been to it.
Oh, no, Guatemala. What has happened here?
You can see the size size of this. This is plausibly what can happen. It depends the depth that the actual cavity comes from. The deeper it comes from, the bigger it will actually be as it goes up. I don't know all of these. I've seen some of these before. I've worked on data from some of these. But I worked as far as Kalgoorlie in Australia on sinkholes. I worked on the Dead Sea in both Israel and Jordan on sinkholes. So I've worked on a tremendous variety of these.
Are they just an international phenomenon? There's no particular country?
Well, anywhere where two things. Anywhere where you have soluble rocks, and that means limestone, salt, gypsum.
Right. Okay.
Anywhere where you have undermined.
Is it? As you said, underground cavities will try to get to the top, but that is exacerbated by rocks that may dissolve in heavy rain,
yes,
that kind of thing. We've got a picture now. Maybe you could talk us through this one. I believe this is the biggest in the world. This is in China.
This is a limestone. This is a limestone cavity. I can tell by looking at the rock here. So this is limestone caves underground which have collapsed. This rock we're saying surrounding here is limestone. So this will be a massive cave system which is dissolved in the rock and eventually reach the surface. So I can guarantee you.
So I used to live in Los Angeles. I was in the earthquake there in 1995, massive earthquake, which sort of taught me. It's a strange feeling. You said for the first time in your life, you think, "Oh my God, I can't trust the ground beneath my feet," which is the definition of insecurity. So these potholes are a similar phenomenon that, in a way, don't be too trusting of the ground beneath your feet, because you never know what might happen.
Well, it's useful to know. It's useful to know the geology of where you live. And in actual fact, in an area like this, there should be a comprehensive plan by the council as to the nature of the underground workings. I think they're going to have to deal with that. The Blackheath one cost tens of millions of pounds to actually remediate.
Yeah, right? But so they can be repaired, but you said you have to take concrete.
But the worst thing is to just immediately come to here with a lorry full of concrete and tip it into here and think you've dealt with the problem. You might actually superficially, but that's not the answer. The answer is to understand the problem and the extent of it before you decide to remediate. Now, that means it takes longer. But in the wrong, I always say, spend early, save later is a really quite a good motto, to be honest with you.
And so in terms of this place, Godstone, it could be a massive, multi-million-pound project to restore the high street.
Well, what they should do here is they should try to investigate these. You can see the extent these cavities, not just along the road, but from side to side as well.
Yeah.
We need to understand what the subsurface configuration is. This is the surface configuration. What interests me more is what the subsurface is doing, what the cavities and mine workings are. Now, they might be right. This might be a relatively simple thing to deal with. But the trick is not to make the mistake of assuming that when it's not.
Well, Peter, that was fascinating, and I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. Professor Peter Stiles there, former president of the Geological Society of London. See that one in China, the biggest one in the world, and that other one in Guatemala. Massive things, unbelievable. But so what Peter was saying there is, all over the world, particularly in Britain, underneath us, there are all these tunnels that have been built for various reasons, and they make the ground slightly insecure, and you never know what might happen. So be careful out there, folks. You have been warned. Right, we're going to go to break now. When we come back, we're going to speak to Angie Smith, who's the mother of Oliver Smith, who you remember a couple of weeks ago we revealed had been arrested, detained, charged, was going to go to court for making a death threat on Instagram to Keir Starmer. Obviously don't condone that at all. But the thing about Oliver is he's severely autistic. He's 33 years old and he's got a mental age of 10. So we kept saying to the police, come on, this is ridiculous. But as of last week, they said, well, you can avoid going to court, but you're going to have to do a 16-week correctional course to learn about what you post on social media and your approach to politics as well. And we're still going, but he's got a mental age of 10. But as of last week, he was still going to have to do that. Crazy. We're going to speak to his mum next, Angie, so stick around for that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Before we go over to Angie Smith, Oliver's mum, some breaking news which may have some effect on the fragile peace in Gaza. This is just breaking now that police in Israel are investigating reports of explosions involving 3 buses in Bat Yam, south of Tel Aviv. Police described the incident as a suspected terror attack, adding that large police forces are at the scenes searching for suspects. So we have some pictures coming in, I think, but we'll certainly keep you posted with that developing news story as it unfolds, and perhaps bring you some pictorial reporting of us. Well, actually, we've got something now. Can we have a look at that? Can we have a look at that? Yeah. Oh my God, that doesn't look good, does it? Well, there you are. Wow. So there's 3 buses apparently, and police are investigating. We don't know the casualty numbers yet. We don't know if anyone's died. But the thing is, if this is a terrorist attack, depending on who the terrorists are, that could have some kind of effect on the fragile peace in Gaza. So we will keep you updated with that unfolding story. Now, let's get back to the other story we're going to do, and that is good news at last. Oliver Smith, as I was just explaining behind the break some time ago, was arrested, detained by the police, interviewed all day, told he was going to be charged with making a death threat on Instagram to the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. 33-year-old Oliver Smith. And so at first we thought, well, you know, it sort of serves him right. You can't do that. Then we've learned he's got a mental age of 10. He's severely autistic. Lives with his mum and dad down near Plymouth. The police still didn't see sense. They hauled him in and eventually told him, right, in order to avoid, you might not have to go to court, but in order to avoid court, you're going to have to do a 16-week correctional course to teach you all about posting on the internet and also dealing with politics. Again, we went, he's got a mental age of 10. What do you think he's going to, how do you think he's going to benefit from a 16-week course? How's that going to be from the person giving the course and the other people on that course? He's got a mental age of 10. Oh, no, he's going to have to do it. You know, it's typical job's worth. We kept getting in touch with Plymouth Police, and they go, no, it's still ongoing. Anyway, Well, let's go straight over to Oliver's delighted mum, Angie Smith, who has good news. Hello, Angie. Common sense has at last prevailed. Tell us what's happened. What's happened? Go on.
Yeah, well, I wasn't expecting to be back on with you, but just to say thank you so much to talkTV, because what happened was yesterday I got a letter, Oliver received a letter in the post, and it was from the NHS, and it was from an organisation called Live Well, and saying that he'd been needed to go to an appointment on March the 6th, the speech, language and speech therapy.
Right.
So I didn't make the connection, to be honest.
Okay.
So I phoned them up, and she said, "Oh, it might not just be that he." And so I said, "Well, as we all know, Ollie is very articulate." So I said he doesn't, he doesn't have any problems with his speech.
Good typist.
Yeah.
Shouldn't make jokes about this. We don't condone what he did, but it's not. But that isn't the point. It's like reprimanding a little kid. It's ridiculous. But carry on, Angie. Go on.
Anyway, so unfortunately, I didn't realise I'd be back on with you. So when I found out, once I finally got through to somebody that was brilliant, actually, I have to say, she was absolutely fantastic. So basically, it was from the NHS, and he said he had to go on this speech and language course.
Right.
Speech. And so I said, but he doesn't have any problems with, because I didn't make the connection.
Right. Yeah.
And then he said, oh, well, sometimes it's not just their speech, it's the fact that they can't swallow and eat properly. I said, I can assure you, my son has a very healthy appetite.
Right. Well, what's this about then? What was this about? Yeah.
So I then, I said, well, can somebody please phone me back? Because I want to know where this has come from. And so, cut a long story short, it did actually, the police had decided, they didn't even let us know, they decided that there was no case to answer. They never even let us know. So they referred it to this.
The NHS, right, saying that Oliver might need some sort of mental help or something like that. But presumably you're not going to bother with that because he can speak.
She phoned me back, and I have to say she was absolutely fantastic. And she just said, "Look, this is a joke. It's just." And I said, he's been punished. We've cut him offline. He's never going to be able to do that sort of thing again. Yeah. And and like I said to you before, we're not making any excuses for him. Although he's autistic, he knew exactly what he was doing was wrong, and we don't make any excuses for that. But he's being punished, and I mean, the poor lad.
That's it though. It's all over. It's all over. He doesn't have to go on this NHS thing because that's ridiculous.
No, because the NHS worker said it was ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. So it's taken them 2.5-3 weeks, but finally the police have seen sense. So well, look, fair play, credit where it's due. It took you a long time, Plymouth Police, but well done. You finally arrived at destination common sense. Good news. Is Oliver pleased, Angie?
Yes, and he's very remorseful. I have to say, bless him. He is a lovely lad. He's not.
I get that point.
He just he made like we all do. We're all human beings. He made a mistake, and he was punished for it, and he knows.
But he didn't. It was ridiculous to threaten him with court, to threaten him with this 16-week course. So I'm really pleased. If we played a small part in helping the police arrive at this decision, then I'm very pleased, and I'm pleased for you. And obviously for Ollie as well. So
Kevin, can I just say?
Yep.
Thank you, and also Mike Neville, because it was actually. I know Mike Neville was earlier on the show earlier on, but it was very interesting that this key worker, who was fantastic, I have to say, she just said, "Look, I'm not even going to bother to come out and see you."
It's nonsense.
It's business. But she said exactly the same. That this program, do you remember that Mike? That this program was absolutely. It was for sort of like disaffected teenagers and people that are into drink and drugs and all that.
Primarily, Angie, it's for people who don't have mental problems like your son. It's primarily for people who don't have the mental age of a 10-year-old. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the madness of all of this. But listen, if we played a small part in that, I'm really pleased. But I'm very pleased for you and your husband and for Ollie. So it's like a fairy tale, isn't it? Happy ending. How about that? And they all lived happily ever after. Excellent news. Listen, Angie, I know you're a big fan of the show, so you keep in touch. Ring us anytime. And it's been great talking to you over the last couple of weeks.
I'm up in London on Monday.
All right. What time are you going to be around? I think I saw a message from you. You're going to be in the area, are you?
Yeah, so I was hoping we could all meet up, maybe.
Get in touch with Samara, the producer, and we'll see if we can bring that about. That might be nice. Yeah, let's try and do that. So listen, Angie, great news. Thank you for talking to us, and all the best to Ollie. There you go. Happy ending, like I say. And they all lived happily ever after. That'll be the day. But good news for the Smith family. Now, where are we at now? What are we doing next? We are going to... we're going to be talking about, oh my God, I just remember what we're doing. The British Folk Society or something has banned the term ladies and gentlemen. Folk music, you can't have ladies and gentlemen. I mean, most folk songs, aren't they about maidens in distress and, hunky toilers of the soil and all that kind of stuff? I mean, to say you can't say ladies and gentlemen, that's ridiculous. We'll talk about that after these messages. Stay where you are.
Well, it's very clear that Vladimir Putin started the war in Ukraine. And what needs to happen is Russia must not allow to win from the conflict that they started in the first place. But these talks are in early days, and what I'm interested to know is what actually comes out of them. My view is Putin is the aggressor in this conflict, and ultimately, if he succeeds in being rewarded for invading Ukraine, he won't stop in Ukraine.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is talk.
Welcome back. Now, the English Folk Dance and Song Society has called for the removal. It's sent guidance out to all its folk fan members, calling for the removal of the term ladies and gentlemen. This is to avoid offending minority genders. The charity's bosses, by the way, this is important because we pay for this lot. It's funded by the Arts Council, which is paid for by our tax pound. They've issued new guidance urging teachers and dance hosts to adopt gender-free language in traditional barn and Salid dances. This is to avoid the horror of anyone being misgendered on the dance floor. Instead, the society suggests dancers are identified by their clothing. So instead of saying, go and dance with that lady over there, go and dance with that person with a skirt on. Or where they're standing in the room, go and dance with that person by the coffee machine. But don't, for God's sake, go and dance with that woman or go and dance with that man. I mean, the Red Cross of all organisations came up with something similar to this recently. The elimination of the term ladies and gentlemen, because there are so many more genders, aren't there? Oh no, I've just remembered there aren't. There's only two genders, ladies and gentlemen. So why are the English Folk Dance and Song Society telling its members to stop using those words? Let's talk to Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley. Welcome to another mad item on my show, Philip. First of all, I'm going to read you. I won't attempt to sing it, mainly because I don't know the tune, and even if I did, it would be terribly out of tune because among my many talents, singing is not one of them. But this song is called Come Lasses and Lads. Careful, we're already on dangerous territory. This is a classic English folk song. This is how it goes. Come lasses and lads, get leave of your dads and away to the Maypole High, whatever that means. For every fair has a sweetheart there and the fiddlers standing by. For Willie shall dance with Jane and Johnny has got his Joan to trip it, trip it, trip it, trip it up and down. So a lot of references to males and females there. So the English Folk Dance and Song Society is not referencing the material that it was formed to revolve around, is it?
Well, first of all, it's great to see you again, Kev. Welcome to Balmy Britain 2025. You know, this is as you say, I've had to write it down because I never remember it. The English Folk Dance and Song Society, EFDSS. It sounds like they should be moonlighting, selling sofas. And they have issued this advice, as you so rightly say. This is backed by the Arts Council England, and this is really important. This is where the real story is, because this is one of those arm's length institutions, quangos, charities that wield so much power and are so undemocratic, and have still, all these decades later, still have Blair stamped all over them. Yeah. Now, the Tory party was going to deal with these and get rid of this strata of influence, unwanted influence. But of course it never did. It was the Tory party. And so we have this, and this is impinging on folk music, men and women. What could be more inclusive? It's gone well for centuries. It's been perfectly fine. Now it's all about non-binary people that didn't exist 10 years ago. Okay, that's the centre of it. And I started saying this is balmy Britain. This is what it's all about now, isn't it? Yeah. So it's the complete opposite. It's the world turned upside down. It's everybody who was okay before are completely marginalised, or fictional people. How odd.
Yeah, I always used to think that most folk songs are always about maidens on cliff tops as their lover. He sailed out of Liverpool, never to return, and all that kind of stuff. And they have that weird way of singing as well. He sailed out of Liverpool, never to return. You know, but I mean, it's a harmless genre. And yet here it is being polluted by this nonsensical wokery. And lest we make the mistake of thinking this kind of madness only exists among folkies, the British Red Cross last year issued a similar guide banning the term ladies and gentlemen and informing its staff that, and I quote, this is the Red Cross, so a quasi British Red Cross, quasi-medical organisation, informing its staff that, and I quote, people who are not women can get pregnant and have periods. No, that's not true.
It sounds like some kind of diktat from some communist republic, doesn't it? I mean, with this, this terrible thing, you're going about your business, everything's okay, and suddenly you get misgendered on the dance floor,
sounds like an Arctic Monkeys song. I saw you misgendered on the dance floor. I like that. But this is insane, isn't it? But you're right. Beneath it, lying beneath it, is this rather sinister assault on just common sense, decency.
It's one of those things, and you see it all the time. And I always come on this show and I give these anecdotes about my life in education and the arts. And I'm going to give another one. There was something a few years ago, and I think it was to do with graduation, students graduating, and the student union, which is just full of these blue-head killjoys. They said, we don't want people clapping because that might be traumatic.
For people who are deaf, yeah.
For people who are neurodiverse, what we want them to do is jazz hands. So what they wanted people to do is when people were going up for degrees, they want people in total silence to go like this.
Because if you made a clapping noise, that would be prejudice against people who are hard of hearing, right?
And so what it does is look weak, it makes us look stupid, it makes our society seem completely incomprehensible to anybody who's looking from the outside looking in. And where do we go from here? I keep thinking to myself, what could possibly be more stupid? But we're in a situation now where this English Folk and Dance Society is saying that you don't use men and women, use names like, and again I've written them down because I've never remembered them, larks and robins. And bears, leads and follows. I mean, really?
It's what's crazy, as I say, of all genres, I mean, nearly every folk song is about a maiden in distress and some guy who's leaving her and all this. The entire genre revolves around the sexes, the male and female, and yet they're trying to negate that.
It's about court, that old word, isn't it? It's about courting. It's about getting together. But there's another irony as well, I think, which is...
Quickly, Philip, because I've got to go to the news very quickly.
This is a genre of the people, and middle-class, chattering classes imposing their rules. It's the same as always happens, and it's really sad.
Very good point to finish on. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Philip. Thank you once again. Philip Kisley, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. What do you think about that? You can't say ladies and gentlemen in the Folk Society. Unbelievable. If they ban the word maiden, there'll be no folk songs left, I'll tell you that. Anyway, next up, it's Kinsey Schofield on Meghan Markle's latest business venture. What a story. Stay tuned for that.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It is time now. By the way, before we get to Kinsey, it's time we will be talking to you in 20 minutes or so. So get on the phone, give me a call, 03444991000. I particularly want maidens to give me a ring about folk songs. No, seriously, you know what we're talking about. Ukraine, Trump, the latest horror from the immigration judges, those crazy morons deciding that a bloke who's bald with wrinkles all over his face and a great big broad chest is a child. He's clearly in his mid-20s. Unbelievable. What do you think about that? And Jonathan Reynolds, we've now caught him out lying in Parliament, the business secretary. We've got footage of him telling Parliament he was a solicitor. He lied to the mother of all parliaments. What should happen to him? All of those issues, get on the phone, or anything else you want to talk to us about, 03444991000. Before we get to you, though, let's go straight over to Los Angeles, and what a week it's been on the royal front, to speak with our brilliant royal guru over there, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hi, Kev. Yeah, pretty schizophrenic is the way that I've been describing it over here when it comes to the launch of As Ever.
Yeah, well, let's first of all pat ourselves on the back, because we broke this story, or rather you did, to be strictly accurate, but I'm going to climb in and take some of the credit. That was when you came on Monday. You'd literally just found out, we broke it to the world, that as I always said, American Riviera Orchard was never going to happen, and indeed it now isn't. All of a sudden, suddenly, she releases this video. Oh, I've changed the name. It's As Ever, it's now called. So forget it. Forget American Riviera Orchard. If you've been waiting for that, forget it. It's not going to happen. She suddenly comes up with this video on Instagram, you know, all kind of, oh, isn't it exciting? Oh, I don't know how we kept the secret for so long. The cat's out of the bag. Pretending that, you know, all along this has been the plan. But it's obviously been done in a terrible hurry. It's been done in haste. You can hear, we'll play the video in a little bit, but you can hear at the beginning of it, old Prince Harry going, it's recording. And then off goes Meghan into her actress mode. So it's going to have jam, it's going to have that, it's going to have that. The point is that brand experts immediately came in and said, this is a serious rush job. Something's happened here. It's panic stations. So she's never going to get American Riviera Orchard off the ground because it is mired in legal wrangling. People saying, we've got that name, you can't have that trademark, one big shopping company over there. Also, the trademark, the USA Trademark Organization Association saying, look, if you call something after a geographical area, as in the American Riviera, which is the coast near where Harry and Meghan live, around Montecito, Santa Barbara, you can only sell produce and manufacture goods made in that area. So she was hamstrung with that. So she explains that in the video. So suddenly, oh, it's As Ever, I registered this in 2022. Well, why didn't you call it As Ever in the first place? And then she kindly explains what As Ever means. It means as it always was. Well, it wasn't.
Yeah, you know what, Kevin, technically the definition is something that remains unchanged or consistent over time, which is the antithesis of Meghan Markle. The antithesis of Meghan Markle. There's nothing consistent about that woman.
Exactly. Now, what the brand experts have said is, or what has emerged is, so hurried and so rushed has this sudden all change been, that she's using to promote As Ever old footage, old promotional material that did have American Riviera on the produce, on the jam and all that. And we can prove it. So check this out. This is a video she released today. This is today on Instagram. She put this on Instagram. Now look at we've circled the jam. See? No words on it. That used to have American Riviera Orchard on it. So this is what's going on here. So she is desperately trying to get this new venture, this new brand off the ground, but it seems like it's very, very rushed, very hurried, very hasty. And once again, Kinsey, it looks like she hasn't done her research. The village of Perores in Mallorca, the mayor of that village, is threatening to sue Meghan because her logo, which is like two birds around a palm tree, is exactly the same as Perores' logo, two birds around a palm tree. Also, guess what? There's a clothing company in New York, also on the warpath. It would be, really, because guess what its name is? As Ever.
As Ever.
She's done it again.
Also a photographer. There's a photography company called As Ever, and that photographer said, "Hey, Meghan, can you throw me a bone?" Her biography now says, before Meghan Markle, established in 2012, before Meghan Markle. So she's added that catty little line there to ensure that everybody knows the photographer specifically named her business after her grandmother, who used to sign her letters that way. So there's this really sweet and authentic origin story for this photographer who's had this name for over a decade. This boutique, who I think that the boutique is more likely to clash with Meghan's efforts going forward than the photographer. But the boutique, has acknowledged their digital footprint shrinking with every Markle mention in the media. They are begging their followers, please help spread the word about us. Please share us with your friends, because they do feel like this is going to potentially jeopardize their business. If they hear through word of mouth, I got this cute outfit here, now somebody has to shift through hundreds of links about Meghan Markle to find their brand.
So here's another one. We're going back to that picture, proving. So she's posted this today to say, here I am getting ready for As Ever. Here's the produce. Now, this is a very sad proof that this is not today. So you've seen the jam. They've taken the name off. Now, this is very sad, but the other circle is around the head of her little dog, Guy, who very sadly died 2 months ago. So this is before 2 months ago. So she's saying, here's my new As Ever venture. This was shot for American Riviera Orchard. So this is being done in one hell of a rush. And as you just said, as you just reiterated, Kinsey, she hasn't done her research once again on the branding. She's got a name that has already plunged her into big trouble. She's turning into a car crash calamity, isn't she?
Well, to further prove our point, she hadn't even secured the Instagram handle As Ever, which is now As Ever Official. But she hadn't secured that until Tuesday night. So Monday, you and I go on air around 1 o'clock in the afternoon for me and reveal that not only is American Riviera Orchard dead, but there's this weird name called As Ever that's floating around there. And we're wondering if this could potentially be the new direction she's going. Hours after that, Meghan uploads a video to Instagram where you can clearly see she hasn't done her hair. She's not wearing makeup. This is again, Harry and Meghan are very reactionary. This is Meghan reacting to the negative feedback she received from that perfect trailer on Netflix. Everybody saying like, who's in the kitchen? So, twirling around in stilettos. So Meghan, announces As Ever hours after we're live and discussing the new brand name. And she doesn't even secure the Instagram handle until Tuesday evening. So that's 24 hours after the announcement that somebody scrambles to secure what they can in the form of an Instagram handle.
It's shambolic. It really is. And a lot of people have said it's amateurish. One Hollywood brand expert said there are only so many launches you can do before it becomes ridiculous. And I think that's...
Well, and the thing is, remember Kim Kardashian had this issue with Skims, and I cannot remember the original name she was trying to, because I haven't had this thought except... You inspired me, and now it's coming out. Yeah, kimono. You know, Kim Kardashian had some, a name prior to the launch of Skims, but she didn't sit on it for a year. You know what I mean? Meghan let us all soak in American Riviera Orchard for a year with that landing page that just collects email addresses for almost a year. So I saw somebody say Kim Kardashian would never do this. She had her hiccups too, but she fixed them.
Yeah, and also she's, Kim Kardashian is a professional at this kind of thing, and she wouldn't make, maybe she had one or two hiccups, but she wouldn't make mistakes on this scale. Let's just remind ourselves of the video that emerged this week, starting off with Harry going, "It's recording." Anyway, take it away, you two.
It's recording.
Okay. Cat's out of the bag. I'm shocked we've kept this a secret for so long. In 2 weeks, my show's coming out, which I'm so excited for. And also my business, which I think there's been a lot of curiosity about. Last year, I had thought, you know what, American Riviera, that sounds like such a great name. It's my neighborhood. It's a nickname for Santa Barbara. But it limited me to things that were just manufactured and grown in this area. Then Netflix came on, not just as my partner in the show, but as my partner in my business, which was huge. So I thought about it, and I've been waiting for a moment to share a name that I had secured in 2022, and this is the moment. And it's called As Ever. As Ever essentially means as it's always been. And if you followed me since 2014 with the TIG, you know I've always loved cooking and crafting and gardening. This is what I do, and I haven't been able to share it with you in the same way for the past few years, but now I can. So as things are starting to trickle out there, I wanted you to hear it from me first. Of course, there will be fruit preserves. I think we're all clear at this point that jam is my jam. But there's so many more products that I just love that I use in my home, and now it's time to share it with you. So I can't wait for you to see it. Thanks, guys.
I mean, frankly, that's fraudulent, that video. She's acting like it's all been planned. I registered As Ever 2022 in 2022. Well, why didn't you call your lifestyle site As Ever then? Why did you call it? Right. Also, I noted this. So she said that she doesn't like the problem with American Riviera Orchard is because it's geographical. It would limit her to only being able to sell produce and manufactured goods made and grown in the Montecito, Santa Barbara area. So she didn't want to be shackled by that. So now, brilliantly, she'll be able to buy it in tats from all over the world.
China.
That'll be very, very, China will be very, very ecologically unfriendly, almost as ecologically unfriendly as that private jet fight she took back from Canada when she dumped Harry up at the Invictus Games and came back on Valentine's Day. So she's not really big on greenery, is she? She's not that good on eco matters.
I think the ultimate situation was, I mean, you said this to me, I don't know if it was privately or publicly, but you said to me Netflix was probably like, we got 2 weeks to go, figure it out. And not only were they not inching any closer to getting American Riviera Orchard approved by the U.S. trademark and patent offices, but it was costing them millions of dollars to continue to resubmit and to continue to argue this. So I honestly think financially this might have been one of the reasons for the crisis pivot. The idea that she has not been able to share her passions for the last few years. You are a 40-something-year-old woman who continuously tries to tell us what a feminist you are. Who was holding you back? You left the royal family 5 years ago. Grow up. Stop lingering in victimhood and stop telling us you're a girl boss, but somebody was holding her back from sharing her favorite pairs of socks with us. That's
the royal family. The royal family suppressed their amazing talent for cooking,
jam making,
crafting, and gardening. Those aren't talents.
Freezing ice.
Those are hobbies, and she seems to think she can make a living from that. And by the way, Kinsey, also I think Meghan has this real problem accepting the concept that someone else is her boss. So she says she's got this program with Love Meghan, the cooking show, coming out on March the 4th on Netflix, which will be boring. And she says, my partners, Netflix. No. Netflix are your bosses. And then she says, and now they're my partners in the business too. No, they're not. They've come on in and they've said, change this damn name now and let's get some stuff on sale and you're going to do exactly what you're told. Otherwise, this is going to come to nothing. So she is being instructed, but in her world, she doesn't have people who tell her what to do. She's their partner. It's the biggest streaming company in the entire world. They're not your partners, Meghan. They're your bosses, right?
Yeah, I mean, you blamed the failure of Polo on Netflix. You said that Netflix took control over Polo and that in the drama, the gossipy gutter drama that it became was Netflix's influence because you didn't have that much control over it. But now you're trying to tell us that you have enough control to dictate With Love Meghan going forward. You know, if With Love Meghan is a failure, are they going to throw Netflix under the bus yet again and say, oh, well, Netflix took it over and we had no control over it? At the end of the day, Meghan has a real problem with authenticity, and until she can rehabilitate her image in that space, I think she will continue to struggle to find a mainstream fan base. You know, Bethany Frankel has, I felt like kind of defended her recently and said that Meghan didn't have an identity. Meghan has an identity. She's hijacked the royal crest. Meghan is desperate to continue to be a royal, despite the fact that she has abused that family emotionally in the media. She's used racism as she's used it almost as a weapon, and tried to take down the royal family. Yet she's hijacked this luxury royal brand. You know, you can't tell us that you were the girl that ate at the $4.99 salad bar at the Sizzler and expect us to believe that you got where you got on your own. You're where you're at because you married a prince. You continue to shove the Duchess title down our throats. And now I think that what's really irritating people is this idea that we're not allowed access to the children, which I've always defended. That's fine. You left the family. If you want to protect them, if you want to
their kids, they can do what they like. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but throwing Lily on your website, on your a picture of Lily on your .com to distract from the fact that American Riviera Orchard is a huge bomb, that's unacceptable. That's it. I've talked to people. I talked to several royal reporters that said this is going to cause tension between Harry and Meghan. This is not the life Harry wants. He does not want to expose his children to this. And she's chasing fame and a dollar.
Yeah, which he's not interested in because he's already got it. And what about him, Kinsey? I mean, you know, he was at the Invictus Games. She went up there and stole the show, made it all about her by kissing him every 3 minutes, getting all over the papers and the television, and then flew back swiftly on, as I say, by private jet. Very, very green that was, on Valentine's Day, strange day to dump your husband. So leaving him up there, but that's over now. He's back in Montecito. So the one thing I will say for Meghan, I mean, at least she's doing something. Now that the Invictus Games are over, what the hell is he doing?
Well, you know, it's been reported that Prince Harry is barely featured in Meghan's new lifestyle show. And last month, we've discussed this several times, but I think it's worth repeating to point out the fact that these two very litigious individuals have not only not commented on this, but have not tried to fight Vanity Fair over it in any way, shape, or form. You know, Vanity Fair reported that someone from Meghan's camp was shopping around a post-divorce from Prince Harry book to American publishers. Yeah. So I look at this entire
I know what she could call the book. With Hate Meghan. What do you think?
How about Happily Ever Never?
Happily Never. Whatever. As you said the other day. Yeah.
But I think that when looking at all of this and looking at the way that it sometimes seems like she's phasing Prince Harry out, professional separation, now it's not a professional separation, whatever. To me, it looks like somebody that's trying to generate financial independence. And it would be silly not to dissect that a little bit, because Meghan's value is associated directly with her proximity to the British royal family and her husband. So when she tries to distance herself from him, and this is a guy who we see every weekend at a charity event, and she's chasing another red carpet, people do not like that. You know, people really dislike this. The way that she acts, like she's inconvenienced by all of this fame, yet visually we see her working it so hard.
It's the old shtick of the C-list Hollywood celebrities. Act like your privacy is constantly being invaded, and you really, really hate it when what you really, really want is for your privacy to be constantly invaded. These are the people who go, oh, the photographers, they follow me everywhere, and then you find out they're paying the photographers. So
near catastrophic car chase in New York City.
Exactly, that kind of crap, to be honest with you. And final point about Harry and her. Look, one thing I'll say about Harry in terms of the social media, he genuinely despises social media. He genuinely feels it's pernicious for children, and that it's having a very, very adverse effect on the world. And he doesn't want to be on the social media. So her storming back onto Instagram in this way, that will go down very badly with him. So once again, her calling the shots and him having to basically do what he's told and put up with his wife doing things that he doesn't approve of.
Yeah, and this, it's also like she's not fully storming in because she's got the comments blocked. It's like, if you want to play, come on over and play. Yeah. But it's again this question of authenticity. You don't want to be here to engage with fans, otherwise you'd open up the comments and you'd have real conversations with your fans, or you'd at least accept some feedback. She is just constantly trying to. She's such a control freak that it's hard for people to want to watch them, because you just feel like you're being told another lie, or another fairy tale from Meghan Markle. That like the time she told us she got married several days before she actually was married, and the Archbishop was like, actually that's not true at all. So I think people are just fed up with the lies. They're fed up with somebody that's trying to manipulate their personal brand so much, and it's the lack of authenticity.
Yeah, indeed, and there's no doubt about it, as we just proved with poor little Guy and the jam. This is a recycled reworking of American Riviera orchard products in a panic. This is a panic. There's no doubt about it. And she's made her trademark mistakes, not really doing enough research in terms of the name of the product and all the ramifications of that. And it doesn't bode well, but we wish her well. The show comes out on March the 4th, and somewhere or other, Kinsey, I think we should try to watch it together, maybe via the one.
Love that idea.
Yeah, we'll do it. Do you have it? We have a show called Gogglebox here, where people.
Oh, but I would be so good on your Gogglebox. I'm starting the petition today. You and I should be on Gogglebox together.
Okay, so the show. We'll do a Gogglebox on With Love Meghan. That's a date. I'm going to be honest here. Alex Phillips came up with that idea. She said that me and her should do it, but I think you and me.
Oh no, she's gonna break up with me. Yeah, she's not gonna want to be my friend anymore.
I'm sorry, Alex, but you're fired. No, well, maybe the three of us will do it. Although if we get Alex in, we'll never get a word in edgeways. But seriously, we will watch it together. And great to talk to you as always, Kinsey. Have a lovely weekend, and we'll talk again on Monday. Kinsey Schofield there on the latest turbulent times for Meghan Markle. What the hell is going on now? Unbelievable. Next up, your calls, your WhatsApp voice notes, and your messages. So after this break, we will get to you. So stand by.
Well, it's very clear that Vladimir Putin started the war in Ukraine. And what needs to happen is Russia must not allow to win from the conflict that they started in the first place. But these talks are in early days, and what I'm interested to know is what actually comes out of them. My view is Putin is the aggressor in this conflict, and ultimately, if he succeeds in being rewarded for invading Ukraine, he won't stop in Ukraine.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Anyway, before, by the way, I should tell you this. Do you remember we just broke this story of this terrible, what looks like a terrorist attack near Tel Aviv? According to the local media, I think we've got some pictures of these buses, multiple buses on fire after what looks like a bomb attack. One of the unexploded devices, weighing 5 kilograms, carried a message saying, "Revenge from Talkarem." Revenge from Talkarem. That refers to a recent Israeli military counter-terrorism operation on the West Bank. So there is a suggestion that this could be Hamas. Now, and frankly, people were speculating that before. Now, if this is a Hamas terrorist attack in the heart of Israel, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I would imagine we can kiss the peace in Gaza goodbye. Very, very tense times over there in the Middle East. We'll keep you posted. We've only got half an hour or so to go, but if anything else crops up, I will let you know after that. I think it's Andre Walker and Ash. They'll keep you updated as well. Well, moving on, here is your chance, if you are a Talk fan, a Talk viewer, Talk listener, to really, really easily win £25,000. Check this out.
It's competition time, and we're giving you a chance to win a whopping £25,000. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
I should say also, of course, that this seeming terrorist attack, potentially Hamas, comes in the wake of the release of more hostages, except they came in the form of coffins. And that has risen tensions, that has sent tensions in that troubled region, that benighted region, soaring. So very, very unstable conditions over there in Israel and Gaza. As I say, we'll keep you updated. Let's get to the messages and the phones. Never heard from that guy who said, or woman, don't know who it was, why do you never accept calls from Talk listeners? Didn't put their name on. I told them to ring, but they didn't. What a surprise. Here's another message. This is from George. We are all the product of our upbringing and experience. Having an awful childhood or misfortune of PTSD doesn't give anyone a free pass to cause suffering to others. Tough. That's the way life is. Our human rights lawyers are the cause of more suffering than they prevent. He's talking about that's from George. A good point. Let's talk about this Syrian guy who's attacked, sexually assaulted a woman, 19-year-old girl in Dorset. hasn't been sent to prison because to send him to prison would apparently be against the terms of the European Convention on Human Rights because he's got PTSD, which he caught apparently in a Syrian prison. So we're still awaiting sentences. Hopefully they trample all over that and put him behind bars where he deserves to be. Michelle says Donald Trump is not a politician. He's a businessman. That's why he sounds unlike any other politician. He simply isn't one. Well, that's his strength, isn't it? That's his strength. I don't know what is a politician. Someone who doesn't talk straight, basically. This is from Michael. What I said earlier about Trump. You know, people are overreacting at this stage. These are early doors, aren't they? He said, I agree with Kevin. People must calm down and stop this constant sniping at Trump. Peace must reign. Well, yes, indeed. And a quick one from Lorraine. This is about Hugo Norton-Taylor. He's the guy, the judge, the idiot judge, who basically lowered the drawbridge and opened the gate to every single Palestinian to be allowed to come and settle in Britain if they fancy it, after allowing a family of 6 from Gaza into Britain using legislation specifically created to help Ukrainians. Anyway, Lorraine says, it seems that Justice Hugo Norton-Taylor has made significant judgments that seriously impact on the British public who fund his deranged decisions. His actions, such as he clearly has an agenda against the state and a conflict of interest. It's true. These judges, not just Norton-Taylor, Hugo Norton-Taylor, I mean, they're all Guardian readers. They're left-wingers, and they see themselves, I think, as sort of fighting a righteous war against a racist, repressive state of Britain, because they're lefties. So the establishment in this country is now left-wing. And the judges are an example of that. It's bad news, folks. We're going to do something about it. We're going to be able to judge the judges. We're going to be able to sack the judges. We're going to be able to reprimand, punish them. Can't do any of that at the moment. We have no mechanism to do it because we revere these learned idiots. Well, let's stop revering them and let's start sacking them. That will make them make sensible decisions. But we can't now. So give us the power to sack judges. It will be a start. Right, let's go to Liverpool, talk to Paul. Hello, Paul. You want to talk about Donald Trump?
Yeah, hi, Kev. Just oddly, that Hamas and Israel thing will never end. And I think that's what Trump is thinking about, the Ukraine and the Russian thing. It will never end unless you have a wild, different approach. And all he's thinking about is one focus, save lives of them young kids who are dying. And that's it. He doesn't care how he does it. He doesn't care what he says. He doesn't care if he upsets people. I mean, all these other callers, the other like MPs and so on, all they ever shout about is, oh, it won't look good on the world stage. Well, you tell that to a mum.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Paul. You tell that to the parents of some young guy. And when we say young men, I mean, half of them are like 18, 17.
21.
Yeah, I mean, they're teenagers, lots of them. You tell the parents of those poor boys dying out there that Trump is wrong to seek peace. Now, the kind of peace he's seeking so far, the kind of rhetoric he's coming out with, I think is disconcerting. When we can't give too much to Putin, but some concessions will have to be made. All wars end with concessions, and there will be concessions. So why not try and do it now, Paul?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Why give it another 10 years?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly the point I was making.
You know. And at the end of the day, listen, Putin ain't going to lose and he ain't going to stop. He's a dictator. He's wrong. He shouldn't have done it. But you know what? The world isn't fair. We're not playing in a fair game. Yeah. So the only way to stop 20-year-old kids dying in a field is to be a lunatic like Trump and go in, smash the chessboards a bit and start again with dominoes, I don't know, but start again with a new approach. And of course, Trump's saying some crazy stuff. He is. It's like, whoa. But you know what? I don't care. I want them kids to stop dying in a field. That's all I care about.
That is my attitude. He's got other factors in his agenda. There's no doubt about that. He wants a load of money out of Ukraine for mineral rights that he says America is owned. But he also mainly doesn't want to keep giving them billions of dollars. America, since that war began, has sent Ukraine $350 billion. billion. Now, if the European leaders defy him and just carry on with the war, carry on to what he's going to stop sending that money, and that is going to increase the burden on Britain and the other European countries astronomically. So, all in all, we better listen to him. We better listen to him.
Kev, all those European leaders who say, "Oh, it doesn't look good on the world stage," and all these things they say, all these big statements. When suddenly they have to pay the bill, they'll all start waking up. They've been carried by America, and even this country hasn't those words for too long. You've got to either pay your way or shut it.
Yeah, exactly. And these last couple of weeks, in particular, what with J.D. Vance's amazing speech in Munich berating EU leaders for their disgraceful attacks on freedom of speech. Couldn't agree with him more. Excellent attack, very warranted. But all of these events are proving that Europe's traditional reliance on America, financial, economic, military, that's coming to an end. That is coming to an end, and we better get used to it. Paul, what a brilliant call. Thank you very much. I couldn't agree with you more. Paul in Liverpool there. Let's go to down to where I am, London, and talk to Georgina. Hello, Georgina. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kevin. Fabulous show as always.
Thank you.
Well, I'm suffering from political overload syndrome at the moment.
Aren't we all?
I find myself sat in front of the television with a very loud voice screaming at them. I've come to the conclusion it's got to such a pitch now that you know when the Labour front bench are lying because their mouths are moving.
Yeah, because their lips move. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jonathan Reynolds blatantly lied on his CV for his position in government. This is in direct contradiction of the Solicitors Act of 1974 by stating that he was a solicitor when in point of fact he was merely a trainee. This is the equivalent of going in for major surgery and paying for a top consultant to operate on you and finding out after the fact that the operation was performed by a medical student. You wouldn't be happy, would you?
No, but you see, the thing is, Georgina, as I was saying to Isabel Oakeshott earlier, you know, a lot of people polish up their CVs in order to get a job, you know. They maybe improve the number of exams they passed, maybe improve the grades. You know, it's not to be approved of, not to be condoned, but a lot of people do it. And often prove to be very, very good at the jobs they kind of slightly fibbed their way into. Doesn't really matter, especially if they're proficient at the jobs. But it does matter for representatives of the people, MPs, members of Parliament, because they are voted into their very important roles by constituents who are persuaded to vote for them by the people they are, their qualifications they've got, their lives. This is me. I was a solicitor. I fought in the army. I did this. And this is what they do. This is how they got it. So he's been voted in on a lie. By saying that he is a solicitor. And then, Georgina, he goes into Parliament. We played it earlier, you must have seen it, and says to the mother of all parliaments, to the House of Commons, I was a solicitor in Manchester. That's a lie. He lied to the Commons. That's serious, and he must be made to, at the very least, apologise for this. I mean, I would say he should be sacked from his role as business secretary, but you know, Starmer, he won't do it. But it's not just ordinary. The MPs, politicians, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Transport Secretary lying about their past. It's far more important than people lying about their past outside of the world of politics. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the Labour Party based its whole campaign on two things, growth and truth, and they delivered neither. You know, Mr. Reynolds has taken part in some very important debates regarding our country, and it's clear now that he's not qualified to do so. I am aware that some people embellish their CVs. A lot of people do. But with this being such an important position in government, why on earth was his CV not scrutinised before he was given the position? This man was placed in a position of great responsibility for the UK, and he is clearly unqualified. We as a nation have already lost all faith in the present government.
Yeah.
And as the UK voters, Kevin, we should demand immediate action. The scandals are relentless. Every other day, another skeleton is found within the Labour Party closet. Keir Starmer has said that he wants the laws to be stringently adhered to. So let him practice what he preaches.
Yeah, exactly. Georgina, brilliant call, as always. Great to talk to you. Keep in touch. Georgina in London there. Let's go to break, come back with more of your calls in just a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Andre Walker or Ash will be in just a little while to tell you what they've got lined up for your entertainment from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. I never know which one it's going to be, so that's a bit of excitement for me. Edge of my seat stuff. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Stephen in Wiltshire. Hello, Stephen. You want to talk about that liar, Jonathan Reynolds?
I do, Kevin. Nice to speak to you.
You too.
I was the one who posted the SRA showing that this person was not a solicitor.
So you found this out, did you?
Well, I seen it on X, showing his history allegedly on some social platform. But I went on the SRA website, typed his name in, and there is a solicitor with the same first name and the same surname, but a different middle name. And I wonder if he's actually been relying on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah, thinking people won't check.
Yeah.
Or go past that. But there's an added thing. I did a law degree, and when you finish your law degree, you have to work as a trainee solicitor.
Yeah, you don't walk straight in, do you, to be... Yeah.
No. So you have to do that 2 years. They then have to contact the SRA and say, you've done everything correctly over the 2-year period of training, and then you actually become a solicitor. Now, the post that I seen, the maximum period of time that he claims he was a trainee was around about 1 year and 1 month, which makes it impossible to...
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no he has been caught out and he's accepted it. He's taken down all references to him being a solicitor, to him ever being a solicitor, because he never was one. If he'd have said I was a trainee solicitor, that would be true, but I was a solicitor. No, he wasn't. So he's taken it all down. He's been caught out, and now we've got proof that he lied to the Commons about it. So it's quite a serious matter. But of course, it being Labour, they'll just let it roll, no doubt. He should apologise at the very least. Stephen, a good point, though, and a good call. Thank you very much for ringing. Stephen in Wiltshire. We've got Tarquin on the line. He's gone away. But first, let's talk to Dave in... I almost said Dave in Ukraine there. Dave in Basildon, who wants to talk about Ukraine. Hi, Dave.
Hello, Kev. Yeah, terrific show.
Thank you.
Crimea was only put into Ukraine in 1954 by Nikita Khrushchev, and that area and the Donbass, I think in 2013 voted 90% plus to return to Russia. And Trump is just telling the European leaders that they've had a free ride for many, many years, and if they want to keep funding this war, which has got to be sorted out, then Europe is going to have to pay for it. Trump's got a much bigger problem. He's got China to worry about.
That's exactly what his agenda is. He doesn't want to be worrying about Russia, which is a strange country. It's got a tiny economy. Economically, it's nothing. It has a smaller economy than Italy. But what money it does have, it spends nearly all of it on this vast military arsenal, including a vast number of nuclear weapons. And that makes it a kind of a superpower, but it doesn't have the facilities or the influence or the economic power to be quite such a worry or anything like the worry to America that China is. You're right. They want to get rid of, Trump wants to dispatch this little problem, stop worrying about Russia and Ukraine and concentrate on America's biggest threat, which is China. You're exactly right.
It's the world's biggest threat. And Russia, I think Putin wants the areas of Russia. He wants access to the Black Sea to get their goods out and goods in. And he wants that area, the Crimea and the Donbass and Donetsk and them bits there.
Yeah.
But he is not a threat to anybody else. He might posture a bit. But we also promised him there'd be no eastward expansion of NATO, which has been right onto his border.
Well, the West, or America in particular, have pressed ever eastwards in terms of NATO, and whether or not people accept that was a real threat to Putin, it certainly made him feel threatened, and that's behind a lot of his moves now. I'm just wondering if we do some sort of deal, and he gets quite a lot of territory. They say, oh, well, then he'll move on to Moldova or something like that. I'm wondering whether he will. But I do understand the geopolitical tensions here. It's a difficult situation. But Trump wants rid of it, and Trump is going to force this peace through if it's the last thing he can do. Dave, I've got to move on, but excellent call. Thank you very much. Dave in Basildon there. Right, I better go to break. When I come back, I'll speak to our friend Tarquin in London. So first this break and then Tarquin. Stay where you are.
Well, it's very clear that Vladimir Putin started the war in Ukraine. And what needs to happen is Russia must not allowed to win from the conflict that they started in the first place. But these talks were in early days, and what I'm interested to know is what actually comes out of them. My view is Putin is the aggressor in this conflict, and ultimately, if he succeeds in being rewarded for invading Ukraine, he won't stop in Ukraine.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I've just found out, breaking news, it's going to be Ash and not Andre Walker. So Ash will be coming in just a couple of minutes to do the handover with me and tell you what they're going to give you for the next 3 hours from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m, what they've got lined up for your delectation. So stand by for that. Now, let's go back to the phones, and it's Tarquin time. Hi, Tarquin. How you doing?
Kevin, how you doing, mate? Brilliant show. Brilliant. Listen.
Is that folk music you've got going on in the background?
Exactly. When I heard you talking to that guy earlier on about the English folk and dance set, you coming out with this BS about ladies and gentlemen being banned, it got me my creative juices flowing.
Right, what you got there? What have you got? Have you got
I've got a bit of a background, probably like your good self. I'm a bit of a guitarist in the background, so I just made up a quick impromptu song. I don't be a
Go on, quick. Go on, then. Go on.
Yeah. Here we go. Just like we need to work on the lyrics. Well, we've got the basic chorus. It goes like this, right? Well, I wish I was a Wookiee with beautiful blue hair. Oh, I wish I was a Wookiee with BS everywhere. Oh, I wish I was a Wookiee with brilliant blue hair. Oh, I wish I was a
Wookiee with blue hair. That's brilliant, Tarquin. Brilliant. I didn't know you were a musician. As I was saying earlier, have you noticed that like nearly all folk songs are about men sailing away with their maiden but weeping in distress on the cliff tops? They always go like, "He sailed out of Liverpool, never to return." And why do they sing in that weird way? They do, don't they?
There you go. We're leaving of Liverpool.
That's it. Well, listen, Tarquin, I've got to go, but you have surpassed yourself. Tarquin from London there. Very quickly, let's go through the WhatsApps. James on Ukraine.
I think we've given Ukraine enough money now, Kevin. I think we've done our bit now. I don't know how much more we can do now. I wish we didn't get involved with it in the first place, to be honest, Kevin, but hey-ho. I see all the lefties having a go at Trump again. But I tell you what, if he pulls this off and gets peace, so be it. I don't understand what people want.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, James. It's complicated, but I don't think there's anything wrong with aggressively trying to seek peace. Maybe the details are going to upset people, but just the endeavour to try and stop that awful war. Why is he getting so much flack? Here's Tristan on the European Convention on Human Rights.
They will need to leave the ECHR. That's a given. There shouldn't be any argument. Some of the cases that are coming through at the moment with these judges is just pathetic. And they need to gut the civil service. They need to gut it because of all of them are against Britain. It's that simple. Those are the two things that you have. And leave the ECHR, gut the civil service. Fire the lot of them.
Couldn't agree more, Tristan. Excellent WhatsApp voice note there. Here's Steve on folk dancing.
If I was to run into the folk dancing fest thing and run up to every man and woman, shouting in their face, pointing in their face, going, "Man, woman, man, woman, and then run away. What description would they give to the police of what I was?
I don't know, Steve, but you get at least 10 years for that. So be careful. Be careful. It's a sinister world out there. And finally, Mark, again on folk dancing.
Here's Mark from Vienna, an outsider. Sorry, but clapping is just normal for dancers. How bonkers are they over there? Or how are you all together over there? Sorry to say that. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, hi Mark from Vienna. We've spoken before. Thank you very much for that voice note message. And you wonder what's going on in this country. Well, the thing is, Mark, Great Britain has gone stark staring mad. And it's good to get a message from an outsider. Thank you very much. Keep in touch. That's it for the WhatsApp voice notes. That's it for this show. But Ash is in the house.
Yeah.
What you got lined up?
We're carrying on with the folk dancing theme. We've got... Yeah, it's great, isn't it? And it should be protected, Morris dancing. Andrew Drury, the filmmaker who spent a long time with Shamima Begum in the camps.
Yeah, I know actually.
He's coming on to start off with, so that's going to be good. So it's 10 years since she left the UK to join ISIS. Yeah. Uber scandal, illegal immigrants are exploiting the system. Well, yeah, because they're all pretending they're, the delivery driver, but they still get the food there in the end. But that's not the thing, is it? You know, they should be a fingerprint or they uncover their faces. Yeah, but this guy was expecting a woman and got a man. But these days, you don't know what they